All right, we are live on YouTube.
All right.
All right, we are live on YouTube.
Welcome.
All right, we are live on YouTube.
Welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hey, good morning, Steph.
Good morning, Dana.
Konnichiwa.
Konnichiwa.
Mm-hmm. 829-664. We hope you can hear some of the music that's playing from the Asian region, setting the tone. I'm going to turn it up just a little bit. Hope you can hear that. Maybe you've had time for yoga today. And you can see our setting. I want to say welcome. Thank you, each of you, for joining us today. And I believe Christopher Herring is going to introduce the session, but my name is Dana Austin, or Lady Dana Austin. And enjoy the setting, and I'll tell you what we have as we go throughout our tea networking, connecting with others around the world.
Well, good morning, good morning, good morning. I'm Christopher Herring. I'm the Executive Director of Global Chamber San Antonio, and also represent Global Chamber Texas. Today, we are very happy to have Lady Dana Austin, who is the author of the book Tea with String Vignettes. We had Lady Dana on at the end of last year to open up what we would call global tea parties. And these tea parties are meant to educate and to inform. Today, we're going to be in the great continent of Asia. And so we're going to be talking about the various stories, trips, various teas. Like this morning, I am drinking a green tea, and so that's what I'm drinking. I encourage you to get your tea and to join us today. Um, this is a great day, so thank you for joining. And I'd like to also welcome the founder of Global Chamber, Doug Brunke. So glad to see you. And also Stephanie Austin, author of the My Will and His Will book series. So today we have a good time talking about tea, and we're going to be talking about also business trends that are happening right now in Asia, as well as I think that if you watch the news, you'll see that we still are in the COVID-19, and want to recognize that in some places of Asia, like in India, they truly have a real hard time right now. So let's keep them in thoughts and prayers as we think about the Asian culture. So with that being said, I'd like to introduce author. She's a healthcare professional who has been on the front lines helping the people, of her community, and just a great chamber member and friend, Lady Dana Austin.
Good morning. Greetings to each
Good
and every
morning.
one of you. I am delighted to see you all on because I know you're joining from around the world. Here in Atlanta, where I reside, it's 9 a.m. And I believe in Texas, where Christopher, where you are, it's 8 a.m. And Doug may be just getting in because it's 6 a.m. But he looks like he's up and rearing to go. And where you are, Stephanie, it's also 8 a.m. So welcome. I want to turn the speaker off on this other device. So give me just a
I've
second.
already taken care of it.
Oh, thank you so much.
Mhm.
Awesome. So we are here and delighted that over a cup of tea that we can network. That's where often many conversations, business deals around the world are made. We have that ability to do that with Global Chamber. And I'm honored. So I want to thank Christopher Herring, who's my director for the San Antonio Global Chamber, and Doug Brunke, the founder, and all of you who are joining. So as he mentioned, we decided and discussed that we would be featuring tea and networking at least every other month for the Global Chamber and focusing on different regions. So with that said, this region that we're focusing on today is Asia. And when you think about Asia, there's several different countries that may come to mind. I know it's early. I like interaction because one, we can say, hey, we share information and also connect. But when you think about Asia, what are some countries that come to mind? I'll start with one. I'm going to start with Japan.
Korea.
Okay. Japan, Korea. What else? I didn't hear you, Doug. Or Stephanie?
China, the capital of tea.
China, the capital of tea. Any others?
Vietnam.
Vietnam.
Actually, I have a Vietnam tea that was given to me when we had a Vietnam delegation that came to San Antonio, and they left that with me, and it's a Trilong, T-R-A long.
Trolong, maybe like a version of a oolong.
Yes, it says oolong tea underneath. Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, you guys are all correct. Those countries, and I'm just going to add a few others. I don't know if you think of Russia, some parts of Russia when we think of tea. That's also included in Asia, some parts of it, as well as India, Thailand, and so many more. So when we're thinking about featuring a region and focusing on Asia, everything I started to do kept coming back to Japan. I touched on a few others though, so we can, share some information about the way tea is celebrated in different parts of Asia. So I'm going to just start with Russia. And some of this information is in my tea book as a reference. It's historical, and I like sharing information and educating. But there's a device that they use in Russia back in the day, and even still they have museums, called a samovar. Have you heard of that before?
Yeah.
They're huge I have an original one. It's heavy. I just didn't bring it over. So I brought the miniature one and it's on the table. So let me grab it and I'll share it with you. Okay. This is a replica of a samovar. And you can see that it's really ornate. The ones that they usually use is more of a copper base. I have one here in the house and they're quite heavy. And what they would do is make the tea concentrated in this upper level here.
Wow,
And then in the body of the samovar is where the hot water would go. Isn't that beautiful?
that's really nice.
Yeah. So what you would do is pour what you want in your teacup from this concentrate, not a lot, and then you dilute it right here from the bottom, the base of the samovar. So this part of Asia that we're featuring is some part of Russia, and they do have samovar museums. Yeah, and you got up early for that one today, huh? All right. Now, as I mentioned, we're going to focus on Japan. And Doug, did you live in Japan?
I did. Yes, I did.
So I'm going to count on you to help me with some pronunciations when I kind of struggle with some words. But the Japanese tea ceremony, it's so eloquent and it's very, you cannot be in a hurry. You have to be present for the whole ceremony. It takes hours. And just recognizing that your host who's hosting the event has gone through painstaking times to make this event special in that culture in particular. And you say, well, why are we doing and featuring different regions of the world and talking about tea and networking? Because Global Chamber is global and international. And when we do business with others around the world, and then when we get back to traveling around the world, we certainly want to be mindful of the customs and the traditions and respectful. And the only way we can do that is through events like this and through other local meetups for our chamber that will be happening, I'm sure, in the near future. So with the Japanese tea ceremony, have you been to several of them, Doug?
Several might be an overstatement, but I have been to certainly like in Kyoto, which is kind of the center of that type of thing. I've been to a tea ceremony in Kyoto, and I know I've been to one in Tokyo as well. So to your point, I remember the one in Kyoto was maybe 3 hours long. It was a very long ceremony.
Can you imagine being invited to an event like that? It's an high honor. So if and when you're traveling abroad and you make it to Japan, you will already be prepared, at least somewhat prepared after having less than an hour, because we don't have the full 3 hours to fulfill that ceremony. But it starts with even the door that you enter in. It's usually a smaller size door and you come in on a bended knee in a humble position. That's a position of humility. And then you also have a tatami mat. So I have one down. You might be able to see it here. You have a tatami mat, and then a lot of efforts are gone into picking flowers from that region and making an arrangement. And they suggest that you use flowers that may have fallen from a storm rather than picking and cutting from a live plant. So in this case, I have some bright little yellow flowers on the table, and I'll zoom in so you can see that shortly. And the artwork for a Japanese tea ceremony, it's usually the Japanese lettering and words. So I'm going to show you here in the book, and then I did my best at replicating it by hand. An artist I'm not, but these are the words that we're featuring today. And so here's my little cheat sheet. Love, peace. There you go, Christopher. And happiness. Absolutely.
Peace, happiness, right?
Love, peace, and happiness. So when I'm going to someone's home or a meeting, I'm always mindful of the intentions that I set before I go and what I want to bring to complement whatever that they're doing or hosting. So in this case, love, peace, and happiness is what I'm bringing, and I'd like to also leave it and share it. And you can see I have it framed over there. I'm going to blow it up just a little bit. One moment. Sorry. There you go. I think you see it now. You see that?
Yes.
All right. So the flower setting is important. The artwork that's framed, and also a framing of an Asian backdrop. And then we have the tea setting. Now, I was really blessed to receive a gift this year of a Japanese tea set from a friend, Carolyn, in Texas. And when it arrived, I was overjoyed because I've never seen anything like this. And being a certified tea consultant and having traveled to at least 60 tea houses around the world, I was impressed with it. So I'm going to show you this today. But the beauty of it is it keeps the tea hot on the inside. And because it's double layered, it's cool to your hand. Isn't that beautiful? All right, you get to see this. And it has hearts on it. So that's part of that love we were talking about. Look at the beauty of this set. It's over 40 something years old. And it has this little crackling effect on it. And also wording. So back in the day, especially on the West Coast, this was a very popular tea set design. So you're out on the West Coast, Doug. If you go to tea for at someone's home, they may pull this set out and you'll say, oh, I saw it before on our global chamber meeting.
Beautiful.
All right. Yes. So, sometimes you pick up the cup and it's very hot to touch because this is double layered. It cools so you can even hold it and it's not so bad.
Huh.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about what kind of tea you guys are drinking before I get into the tea that we're going to feature today. So Christopher, you said you were drinking
a green tea, and I was also looking on page 29 of your book where you talk about green teas.
Awesome. You're directing me today, which is good. It takes a village. So it talks about the benefits of green tea, doesn't it?
Yes. For me, I've looked at the benefits because it helps in digestion, and I'm trying to lose a little bit more weight. So they said this is probably the best tea to drink if you're trying to lose weight.
Absolutely. It is. It's a great one. I mean, certainly you want to drink it in its purest form and not have any additives, sweeteners and so forth. And it has that benefit as an antioxidant. What are you guys drinking? Anybody else want to share?
I have a question. When you say in the purest form, so I've seen descriptions around green teas to say like long green tea, or is there a short and a long, or what do we get when we get like the commercial name brands that may not be the off brands?
Sure. That's a entire workshop, I'll be honest with you, in itself, because green tea, there's different ways that it's prepared, roasted and fried, and then when it's plucked is also important, the region, the elevation. So to get into that at length, that would be we can do that on a 101.
Okay.
I'm happy to do that. But when I think about pure tea, I'm thinking about loose leaves, right? And I'm thinking about adding absolutely nothing. So it's a premium leaf, if it's not a powder, which I'm going to use today, and nothing's added to it.
Okay.
Okay. Welcome, Laura. Good to have you. We wanted to hear what you guys are drinking today. Anybody else want to share? And if you do, just take it off a mic so we mute so we can hear you. I'm going to share with you. Oh, go ahead.
I'm a green tea drinker. When I lived in Japan, every morning when I arrived at work, my office lady, Fukamachi-san, they call office ladies OLs in Japanese. It's actually a Japanese word, OL. She was just an amazing young woman. And so every morning as soon as I would arrive, to your point, the leaves would be in the maker, and I would get my first of many cups of green tea delivered by Fukamachi-san. So for me, it's green tea is somewhat of a spiritual business experience. It's one that I can't simulate. I don't do that. I don't create green tea on my own, but I drink green tea almost every day, and it brings me back to a really good time in my life, and I enjoy it. So to me, it is almost like a daily spiritual event, and I really appreciate it and enjoy it.
OL, huh? Office lady.
OL, office lady. Yeah.
Well, I don't think you could have gotten it any fresher than that when they're picking it and preparing it, steeping it. And it is a ceremony. It is a spiritual event. And I think that's one reason why I've always been drawn to tea. Just sharing a little bit of my background with that, because some people may be on for the first time. I was raised in New York City. I live in Atlanta. We moved here when I was in high school, but our culture is bicultural. My mother's from Alabama. Our father's from Bermuda. So we have the English, British influence and the Southern influence. So we were always surrounded with tea of some form, whether it was in a hot cup of tea or iced tea. And I was talking with Christopher about his experience in Turkey. And I want him to share that because, again, this is just raising awareness as we're doing business around the world, how we can be mindful, sensitive, and then socially politically correct in what we're doing. So share a little bit, Christopher, about your experience with tea in Turkey.
Oh, great. When I was in the United States Air Force, I remember going on my first deployment, and it was to Adana or Turkey. And when I went out they call this place the Alley, where all of the businesses were. And it was funny, all the businesses had like American names. So they would say like, this business is called Sears. And I know what Sears is, but for them, they took the name Sears and they made Sears, which was a store. And so they always, would violate the trademark names of American companies. But the Alley was made up of these types of stores, carpet stores, suits, tailors, and it was my first time being out on the Alley with some of the other soldiers and airmen that were deployed. This was back in the 1990s, and I went into a store. And I was kind of fascinated because I saw, these men they were locked arm in arm walking down the street together. And for a young 20-something-year-old, young man from upstate New York who went to school in Boston, I never saw men hold arm in arm as they were walking in the streets. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow, that's different. And but they were talking. And then so I was led into a store. And it was a tailor. And the first thing that I went to address was the suits that he had. And he says, hold it. He says, I don't know you. He says, please have a seat. And they came out with their very ornate tea set. And
yes, with the gold trimming.
With the gold trimming. And it was just beautiful. And I sat down and I'm still looking at, all of the suit designs and so forth, but the focus was, we have to establish a rapport. So they poured me tea and it was like 100 degrees. And I was like, well, I don't want to drink hot tea in 100 degrees, but everyone in every store would bring you tea first to get to know you, to build a relationship. Before any sales transaction could even happen. So So for a fast-paced New Yorker to slow me down and to get me to open up and to talk about who I am, learn who they are, I found that it was very, very beautiful experience.
Oh,
And
yes.
when I went back to Saudi Arabia, I've experienced a similar type of thing there.
Well, you know, that speaks to relationship. They don't want to just sell you something. They want to build a relationship with you. And when doing business locally, internationally, it's good to be mindful of customs so that we are not offending them. Thank you for that, Christopher.
Mhm.
And the Turkish tea is pretty strong. They usually use a black tea, and oftentimes will have sage with it as well, or mint, right?
Yes.
Welcome, Laura. Good to have you on. Um, from Texas, another one of our San Antonio favorites. We're just asking each of you, what are you drinking today? And share with that as we go into what our Japanese tea will be for today. And I know you have tea because I know someone sent you some.
They did. I think it's rhubarb tea.
Yes.
I'm a tea novice,
Mm-hmm.
so being connected with Dana has really kind of opened my eyes to the tea culture, and so I'm learning. I won't say I'm embarrassed to say, but I just
No.
growing up, I was a little girl. I was a Lipton tea drinker because that's all they advertised. And my family was a coffee drinker. And so, but I love tea. I love all different types of teas. And so Dana has really opened my eyes to the tea culture and the relationship building and what relationships can be built centered around tea. So
Absolutely. Laura Johnson is a incredible entrepreneur and radio, what's the word? Not just host, there's another word, but she hosts her own TV program. And I've been honored to be a guest on it a few times.
Oh.
And she raises awareness around issues around the world, feature businesses, authors, and connect. She's a connector. What were you going to say, Christopher?
I'll just jump in. So Laura Thompson is the general manager for TAN TV, the African American Network. And she says she has a global reach. And her shows are dynamite. She deals with events all around the world and has some great people who show up to talk about their experiences. She is the former Texas State representative for House District there in San Antonio. And then she has that banner behind her, the coffee break. No slight to tea today, but
no, I was like the nerve of her. We're going to convert her. So you just start one cup of tea at a time.
I'm gonna do the tea break.
Yes.
So yeah, she was my former boss. So so it's good to have Laura on today, and welcome. Yeah.
Thank you for that better complete introduction. And you're drinking the Rooibos tea. That's the South African tea, which is made from a bush, and it's definitely full of minerals and vitamins and awesomeness. But I think yours also has caramel in it, so it's just an extra little bit of goodness. Awesome. And Stephanie, did you care to share what you're drinking, or anybody else? And I'll go into what we're preparing today.
I'm not drinking anything this morning, but one of my favorite teas is a lemongrass. I love lemongrass tea, and I've had it with different styles where you get the lemongrass and there's like a root at the bottom, and you cut that and steep that. And I've also had it in Bermuda where our relative would get it out of the garden and cut the leaves at the top, which I've never had it that way. And it's just delicious. I truly enjoy lemongrass tea.
Yes, it's cleansing, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So Stephanie Austin, we share many things in common. We also share parents and a love of life, culture, business, and connecting. She is a healthcare executive and author and so many other things. But I know she's a lover of tea because that's how we grew up. So this is our featured tea today. Say matcha with me. So
Matcha.
this matcha tea is from Japan. And there's so many things I want to share with you, but I'm also mindful of time. I'll show you that I'm dressed in my kimono as well. It's a top kimono for the event, and I also have on my jade beads. So I am traditionally set for this event. But a Japanese tea does not necessarily have all of the accoutrements that we have when we have like an English tea or Southern tea with the sandwiches and the scones and so forth. Rather, they have a miso soup and rice, and they also use bamboo chopsticks. So you can see our rice here today, a Japanese bowl, and our bamboo chopsticks made in my rice cooker. And this is our miso soup, but I put some fish in it.
Can you raise it higher?
I'm gonna try this way instead.
Oh,
see it?
okay. Miso soup. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, and it has scallions and seaweed and just goodness. Look at all that. Little pieces of fish as well. It doesn't have the traditional fish that we use in Japan. I use red snapper because that's what I had.
Like Lady Dana,
And-
Lady Dana, aren't you?
Yes.
You're a chef as well, aren't you?
Yeah. I didn't want you to hold me to any standards today, so all I made was the rice and the soup.
No, but you just recently were in a top chef competition, so
I
you do
was,
have to think
Christopher.
of being a chef. Yes.
Thank you for that. And it was an honor to be in that international, and I was third in my category, so that was incredible. Normally, I make matcha cookies, but this time I bought items. So this is a matcha green tea cookie, and it's usually like a butter base and almond. And these are green matcha tea Kit Kats. Now, this is not traditional in the Japanese tea ceremony, so I added, stop laughing, Doug.
The famous Kit Kats in Japan, right? The crazy passion for Kit Kats. That's amazing.
Is that right?
Japanese are crazy about Kit Kats. There's hundreds and hundreds of varieties of Kit Kats. And the fact that you would pick that out is amazing. That's extraordinary.
So you see our Japanese Kit Kats, and they're awesome. They're one of my favorites, by the way.
Yeah.
All right. So you notice I have my chopsticks for those as well. So with the Japanese matcha tea, it comes in a powder. All right, so I'm just going to share with you here the bag. Get a little close up.
Okay.
Show it over here too. So it comes in a powder. I'm going to show you the one I have in a container in a powder. And there's different grades of the matcha tea.
Okay.
Again, like we were talking about the loose tea grades and premium ones. So this is how it looks here. And you think about tea, and I always think about tastings, like wine tasting, tea tastings. I always start with smelling it, right? And you describe it. When I took the certification for tea, we had to go through tastings of tea, like wine tasting. And so this I would describe as an earthy, grassy smell, okay? And it's in a powder form because with the Japanese tea ceremony, they mix the tea powder and hot water, and they serve it, usually to the honored guest first. Did you experience that at Aldog and your time in Japan?
Absolutely.
Did you get the tea first, or were you kind of at the end? Don't tell me. If they served it to you first, you were the honored guest. And this is the whisk. It's a bamboo whisk that you mix the powder tea. So guys, just for being on today, and if you've never had this experience before, you are just so far ahead and being aware and knowledgeable about Japanese tea ceremony. So I'm going to mix one. And the ratio for mixing is 3-to-1. So 3 spoons of the matcha tea powder to 1 cup.
Hi, Ruby from Ghana. So good that you're here today.
Hi, Ruby.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Sorry,
Good
I
to
just
have
joined. Just to say that the tea I love most is called tea masala from Kenya. It's very spicy and nice.
We're glad to have you, Ruby. So here's another teapot that I have. And I have the hot water in this one. I'm just going to use it for the sake of pouring in the bowl. Okay. And this is the thickened portion of the tea, of the matcha tea. So I will use this whisk to mix it. And Doug, how did they serve you your tea the first time you drank it?
You know, I'm pretty sure it was in a, in a cup, without handles. It was just one of those kind of traditional tea cups. And then you take the sip, both hands.
Holding hands?
Both hands holding the cup.
Oh, with both hands?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So I've got the tea already mixed. And even that there's a ceremony on how you handle the bowl, how you turn the bowl.
Exactly, yeah.
I wish we could go into all of it. I'm going to give you some references here. On page 34 of the tea book that I have, and another one that I have that's actually written about the tea ceremony, it talks about it's served during the Japanese tea ceremony, which is called chakasaki. Is that correct? My Japanese is needing a little bit sharpening.
It sounds okay.
All right. And so you have to expect this tea to be like nothing you've ever had before. If you've not had this or pu'er, those two are on the extreme spectrum for tea. And I've been to Ghana, but I'm not sure that I've had tea there. So what's the tea that you generally have in Ghana, Ruby? I know cocoa is the big thing there. That's my favorite. So I'll sit this down.
Dana, she had mentioned when you were mixing that tea masala is her favorite from Kenya. And then she did say to me in a chat that cocoa or chocolate, because they have lots of cocoa in Ghana.
Oh yes, cocoa, that's another good thing that has benefits. The one from Ghana is the best I've had, and it lowers your blood pressure by itself. Not the way we drink it here. It's pure. So we talked about a few things today, and I'm just going to chime in so we can get everybody on the same page. So what is the mat called that we generally see at a tea ceremony? A tatami. So we've got our tatami mat here, and I'm going to zoom out so they can see over here as well. All right. I think I zoomed out a little too much. I usually have my wonderful niece helping me with all these technology things. All right, so we have our tatami mat. And then we talked also about our borders, a little background. That's important to have, as well as a fresh floral arrangement. So we have our fresh flowers and our artwork in the form of words that evokes prosperity, good health, love, and peace. And then you have the traditional Japanese meal and the tea itself. But I wanted to show you this book that a friend gave me. This is a Japanese tea book, and you can see it's made from the bamboo, and it's back from 1973. I'm going to read to you a little bit from here. It says, The Japanese Tea Ceremony by Takako Michi, January 1973.
Can you imagine? And so a very good coworker I used to work with knew my affinity for tea, so she gave me this as well as a tea set. All right. So any questions about this so far? This is our Ikebana. And as I mentioned, when you enter the room, you normally are coming in a smaller door on your knees in a humble position. And there was a few things that I wanted to share from this book that says about tea ceremonies. It says a tea ceremony is a complicated and lifetime challenge, and its goal is to touch men and women for proper behavior and decorum, as well as to make life in the society of men and women pleasant and facile. This is indeed a worthy purpose, and it is to be hoped that with the increasing tempo of life in modern Japan, that the gracious and charm of ancient tea ceremony will not be speedily disappear or dissipate. Okay, so that's a little bit about that. What are some other questions that you have? And I'll share a few other things about tea and different regions of Asia, of mixing, blending, customs that you'd like to know that I'm happy to share with you today.
And I also would like to welcome Cesar from Global Chamber. He's also on from Puerto Rico. So just so you know that lady.
Welcome, Cesar.
Oh,
I have an echo.
Turn your volume down on one of your devices.
Let me get rid of my echo. Sorry.
I think that it's important for us to hear her twice, and that's why the echo is in place.
Once is not enough.
Right.
Other book that I was referencing is also my tea book. Can you hear me okay? Is the echo gone?
Oh, you're great.
Okay, great. So on page 34, it says, chakaseki is served during the Japanese tea ceremony, served on a tiny tray with cedar chopsticks. So we were doing that. And also, chaji is a full Japanese tea presentation with a meal. So that's what we were having today. And our meal consisted of the rice, a miso soup. It can also be made with like tofu. And I did mine with fish today. And then this talks about other ceremonies around the world, but it's important to be mindful. And then I'm going back to this wonderful little treasure that I got as a gift, as I mentioned, in 1973. And as I'm doing that, Cesar, I hope you're having tea this morning in Puerto Rico. And if you are, if you would be so kind to share it with us, what type of tea are you drinking? And did you go through all of the fuss of setting up your table? Cesar, you're on mute. And another important part of a tea ceremony is a haiku. So haiku is a Japanese poem. So while Cesar is going to get his tea together, which I imagine he's doing, so he can tell us what he's drinking, I am going to share with you one of my haikus. Okay? And if anybody has a poem, a haiku that they'd like to share, this is a good time to do that, or another type of poem. I know Laura normally has really great poems. All right, so on page 72 of the book, she's like, oh, she's putting me on the spot, but I know she's clicking. On page 72 of my book, I have some haikus that I've written. I'm going to share a few of them with you, and then we'll check back in with Cesar and Laura about their tea and any poems that they like to finish off the program with. So this particular one, I call this an American style haiku, and a haiku is a Japanese poems, and it has to fit a certain pattern, so many words per line and no more than 3 lines. And so because mine exceeds it sometime, I call it an American style haiku. So this first one is entitled, Curious and Blue. Curious and blue. In a bed of yellow hue, blooming and blossoming as little ones do. Curious and blue. That's where a snap would come in. It's not like a regular American. It's a short little poem. And the next one, you guys are saying, where's the rest of it? The next one is here. You just start into it. That's how it goes. Withered, roasted, fried, or curl. You come and varied and special types. Sipping you makes all right. You know what I'm talking about there?
Mhm.
Tea. So speaking to your question earlier, Christopher, about green tea and the different cuts and shape and premium, teas are dry, roasted, withered, curl. That's makes it, they all come from one leaf. That's the
Mhm.
Camellia sinensis plant. And how they process is what makes them different types of tea. That
Okay.
only stands for true tea, nothing, it doesn't stand for the lemongrass, which is, I think more of a herb seasoning. It doesn't stand for mint tea or even the South African rooibos, which is a bush, a red bush. Okay,
I also
so
like your haiku, seeds of winter bloom,
how about you read that one?
winds of spring blow, joys of today shine. Lady Dana Austin, 2006. Copyright. That's very nice.
Thank you, sir.
Doug, we have to write our own haikus at some point.
I think so.
I've written many haikus in the past. I love those very much. I wonder if could I ask a question?
Sure.
We talked earlier about how long these ceremonies go, and my memory just off the top of my head is 3 hours. When I Googled it, it says a typical one is actually 4 hours, which is amazing, right? And one of the similarities, at least how I feel about that whole ceremony, is it feels almost religious, almost like, we're Greek Orthodox, and during the Greek Orthodox, church ceremony, there are many different things that are done that you don't understand, especially since I don't understand Greek. And so do you feel like there's almost an analogy between the whole process of making tea and religion and the religious ceremony? Is there something inherently needed by people to be able to kind of go through this ritual, even if we don't even understand a lot of what's being done?
I think so. And I think certainly bringing it up and comparing it to your faith as a Greek Orthodox, the Japanese tea ceremony was kind of born out of a religious practice of the monks, Buddhists. Okay, so it only stands to reason that it would be ritualistic in its ceremony and its style, and it does cause you to kind of come aside, and you can't be in a hurry when you're going to someone's, you're invited as a guest to this event. You have to be present, fully present. And it's the same whether you're going to church or trying to see something that might be comparable. Let's say Easter, because I think for most people who are Christians, Easter is pretty much, especially Catholic. Their Easter ceremony is very ritualistic, and it has a reverence to it. And the Japanese tea ceremony, there's a reverence around that, and you have to be still. Oh, speaking of, there would not be all of this chatter that we're having around the Japanese tea ceremony. So that's part of their custom too. There's not a lot of conversation. It's really more being. It's the art of being quiet.
It's a Zen-like experience. Is there anything like it? I mean, the Chinese have rituals around tea as well, but I've never seen anything like the Japanese style. And Americans throw a tea bag into a cup, right? So are there other places in the world where we see this kind of ritualistic behavior?
I think on a smaller setting, what Christopher shared in terms of Turkey, and then I've seen something similar in Senegal. It's not formal by any means, like the least formal there is of all the teas I've experienced. However, there's 3 different phases of their tea service, informal service. And generally the children would get first. Or is it the second, the third? No, the men get first, the children get last, because the last is the sweetest. So it's not as ritualistic in Senegal. However, it goes in like courses, so to speak, and it's outdoors most of the time. If it's not in the house, it's mostly outdoors, and the men usually lead out in that. Let's see what other ones that I may have seen or experienced. I think the English do it too more of a ceremonial slower pace than if, compared to anything else that we know. They do it in courses and take your time. And that's usually like an hour and a half, 2 hours, I would say at the most, unless somebody else has seen others. My mind is going around the globe. I'm like, okay, well, let's see.
The whole ritual around coffee, there's probably also nothing like it either, right? I mean, I've seen the Turkish tea where they brew it in this hot sand, and there may be some analogous types of things, but there's nothing that lasts 3 or 4 hours with coffee. Right?
Japan has it. That's their thing. That ceremony is truly, I think that's where it pretty much originated, even though tea originated in China by accident, discovered by Emperor Nun. But the Buddhists have made the ceremony what it is in Japan today. And I don't know, I've not been to Japan. I'd like to go at some point. I don't know if they're still practicing as often as they have in the past. I hope that's something that they maintain. But whenever we come in contact with others from that region, at least we have an appreciation and a respect. And if you're invited to tea, allow yourself several hours. Clear your calendar.
Yep. The place to go to is Kyoto for the actual, like, real old style. But when I Googled it, there's plenty of places in Tokyo as well. So there's always, it definitely continues. It's always available. It's inherent in the Japanese culture. So if you really want to go through that, I'm sure forever we'll be able to see that. And it's definitely worth doing at least once.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And by the way, if you guys wouldn't mind sharing in the chat room some of your favorite tea spots that you've traveled to around the world. 1, we would like to experience those. 2, I want to include that if it's not already in a spot that I've gone to in my next tea book, 101 tea houses to experience around the world. And I've gone to one in Kenya, speaking to your love of Kenyan tea, Ruby. And what are you drinking today, Ruby? And then Cesar. There you are. We just want to hear you, though. I think you're on mute.
Yeah, unmute, Ruby.
You're going through all of that. We want to hear you.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, good afternoon.
Afternoon. Hi, so this is what I love. It's tea masala from Kenya. Very spicy.
Yes. I tell you, it's interesting, the influence of India and Kenya, the masala part being Indian. Because there's a large group of Indians that were taken to Kenya to help work on the railway back in the day when they had that. So the food in Kenya is absolutely everything. If you like samosas, if you like chapati, you would think you're in India, but it's in Kenya that they serve these things, rice and beans and so forth. So their tea masala is popular. I have a Kenyan tea here too, but it's their black one from Kericho Gardens. I've been there and I've picked tea there before too, for like 5 minutes, like just to say you've picked it, I really applaud the women. Mostly women are picking there, and they'll have their babies on their back in the bag to pick, like, I don't know the measurements. I'm going to say a bushel of tea, and they're out in the hot sun and they may not even earn a nickel a day. So when you drink tea, for one, if no other reason, appreciate the person that has picked it and the painstaking efforts that they've taken to pick the 2 leaves in the bud to give you the perfect cup of tea. So take your time. You don't have to go to Japan to slow down to enjoy a perfect cup of tea. Just don't rush the one that you're having. Invite somebody, be it on a Zoom or in your space and social distance. It just helps us to be in a place of reflection. And as the 3 Japanese words we're using today, a place of love, a place of peace, and what was the 3rd word? Happiness. Okay. Okay, Laura, you ready for that poem you're going to share? Taichuan,
Yes,
Taiwan, Oolong,
Mm.
Adana, Ken. Okay. Go ahead, my dear.
So first I have a question. I like to have something in my tea besides just tea. So when you're doing those ceremonies and the one that you demonstrated today, do you sweeten the tea or how are you, is it?
This Japanese matcha tea,
Mhm.
I guess I don't have to call it Japanese matcha tea. You just say matcha, but that's what I usually say. The Japanese matcha tea, you just drink it like that.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. I picked a poem. It's out of my first book, Beneath the Mask. And it's called Helping Hand. It
Mhm.
says, one that appears in time of need, one that asks nothing for nothing in return, one that gives from the heart, one that forgives misuse, one that holds on through the rough spots, one that turns despair into hope, one that stretches to reach you, one that is selfless, one that rewards instead of punishes, one that feeds the body and the soul. Thank God for the helping hand.
Oh, beautiful. I don't know if they snap in Japan, but we're going to snap here in the UK and Puerto Rico. And Katie, we see you just joined in. I'm sorry for that mix up there, but we're glad you're on.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
And we want to thank Laura Thompson for finishing off our conversation today. We did a few haikus and then she shared her poem, Helping Hands. And in the spirit of the culture, I want to say domo arigato. And if you would, Katie, two things, put in the chat room a tea house or two that you've experienced, whether in Australia or UK or around the world, that you want to suggest that we travel to and experience. And tell us what you're drinking, if you would. And for all of you that are on today, if you just click in the chat room over where it says file or the three buttons next to it, that'll allow you to save the discussions from the chat room and you can visit these places. So thank you all, Christopher and Doug, for sharing these places. I love oolong tea. Oolong, I think, I always say this one's my favorite, right? And then I have several favorite, but I love oolong because it's really a good digestive tea as well. And it's smooth. It's like a brandy, and I've never had brandy, but that's what they compare it to. Yeah, it's the brandy of teas. Betsy's Cafe and Tea Room in Yorkshire. Okay. And you're drinking Yorkshire tea. Awesome.
So you said that which tea reminds you of brandy?
Oolong.
Okay, so then the oolong tea that I was talking about from Vietnam. So I'm sitting right here with, I guess, liquid gold brandy.
Liquid gold brandy. I mean, your life is good.
Oh man, I didn't know what I had here. I'm sorry for interrupting, but you got me excited. I was like, holy, I stopped drinking a while ago. And so this gives me the same experience. I'm going to tell you about it on our next Global Tea Party.
Please do. Please do. Now, one thing about somebody brought this up the other day. I don't know if I saw it in the chat room, but they were talking about worth its weight in tea. So I'm just going to leave this last little nugget with you as we're tying up our time here, and then we'll talk to you about our next event. Tea used to be worth its weight. Well, it was actually light. So, but it was like valued like gold, and things were purchased with tea and traded for tea. So get into it, read about it. Whether you pick up mine or others, there's some other really great tea books out there, the history, because it really opens our mind about culture. It really gives us a place of spiritual awareness. And to the last point on that, Doug, the Japanese tea ceremony, it's definitely a custom and for invited guests, but it's also for repairing relationships. It talks about that. See, because you cannot sit with somebody for 3 and 4 hours over tea where you're not really talking as much and they're serving you and you not come away with some healing. So remember that. Don't forget to let Katie say words. But yes. Oh, so Katie, share with me some words about your experience with tea. And I know we were talking about doing an event towards the end of the year, focusing on London and tea.
That's very exciting. I'd definitely love to explore. Tea is very important here in the UK. I've learnt over the last 5 years since moving here, and it sort of brings people together. It also gives me an opportunity to have a rest and a break.
Mhm.
My experience through lockdown with tea is it's actually taking me away from my desk, from my environment, stretching my legs, getting me moving, going into the kitchen. And then in that time, I might play with the dogs or do something which is for me. So it's actually giving me space, tea is at the moment, to make that cup of tea.
Absolutely. It does enrich and relax. I've started something at my place of employment. When I'm not working in the hospital, like that's really was more during the pandemic time, the height of it. So I'm back into the research realm, clinical trials. And so I host tea once a week at work. We like to do it every day, but I just said 3:00 tea time, and they come around and we just 15, 20 minutes. That makes a difference in your day. It renews your energy, it refreshes you, it connects us, and we go back ready. So I'm sure just like you're doing, Katie, it just makes a major difference in clarity and calm, doesn't it?
And there's a
Okay.
process about doing it. It's methodical, isn't it, to make the tea?
It is. I wish you had seen it, but I think Christopher's going to post it on, post a link where you can review this again. And we're going to finish off with our words today, which is our Japanese words for peace, love, and happiness. That's what we bring today for you. That's what we wish for you today. And wherever you go, be intentional and know that you're carrying energy with you. So to be mindful of what you're carrying and add to somebody's life, be mindful not to take away. And thank you for having us today.
I also want to tell everyone to get your book. I mean, hold your book up again, Lady Dana Austin. Hold your book up. Yeah, her book is Tea with Strings Vignettes, Culture, Customs, and Recipes. She wrote the book during the COVID-19, and really, as some people were complaining about everything that was happening with the lockdown, she was actually exploring her entrepreneurial side. And her book was ranked #1 in the business etiquette for Amazon.com. And then she also got to bestseller status with her book. So great. Congratulations to you, Lady Dana Austin.
Thank you, Christopher.
Mhm.
I was showing this page because you know how we talked about the teas we had today. So when we come on our Global Chamber of Tea, networking over a cup of tea, write down the tea that you have. You know, write the descriptives here. It goes over the tea type, whether it's green, white, the name of the tea, and describe the tea and your experience. Because every tea is going to have a different experience. It's going to bring you to a different place. I can't wait to hear about that brandy.
No, and so you taught me something again today, and I'm really enjoying the fact that every time that I come on and I talk about tea, I have to experiment with something different. So I also have this tiny bubbles tea that was for anxiety relief, and this was sent to me by Lady Dana Austin as a sample, and it's really great, and it's caffeine free. Now, we didn't really talk about that some teas have more caffeine than others. Some make me really hyper, and others are more laid back. But this one here is perfect for my nighttime drinking, and I could actually sleep at night versus if I drink, maybe a black tea, which has more caffeine and I'm just up. So I appreciate you giving me this. Thank you.
You're welcome. So you guys, reach out to me if you want some samples. I'll try to get them to you. This one is one of my new favorites. It's a rhubarb oolong. And this rhubarb oolong, I love rhubarb and I love oolong. Like put the two together and hello. This is by another good friend of mine she's a tea entrepreneur. I'm a TEO, tea event orchestrator. So this is her business, Tea Mistress. She normally comes on. So look up Tea Mistress. It's Amanda. She's in Texas and Houston. And I just want to show you what those look like. And they're very fragrant. It's a fruity smell with the oolong earthiness combined. And if you can imagine drinking that, it's to live for. So at some point, and through Global Chamber, I want to start doing my tea blends and selling those again. So what I'm promoting is others people's tea that are great quality that I love, and I believe in networking and sharing as well. But at some point, I would like to be importing my teas again and blending them and selling them online. So be on the lookout for that. Share your information in the chat so people can find you. And what's
Oh.
our next event?
Well,
this
Lady
week?
Dana, our next event will be on June 27th. And when you get into the mixology of your teas, there's a great Global Chamber event that we do. It's almost like a Shark Tank pitch, which is called the League of Extraordinaires. I saw you were in the last one, so you know what I'm talking
Yes.
about. But
Oh my gosh, it was phenomenal.
I mean, Doug makes
Everybody
me so
on here is a
nervous.
part of the chamber, right?
Dana, Doug makes me so nervous when he's going through with all the people who have their pitch ideas lined up. And he's like, okay, you only have 5 minutes, and 3 minutes should be for your presentation, 2 minutes should be for your question and answer. And then they blow it sometimes. And I'm like, but you know.
No,
always
you're rooting for them. You're rooting for them. It was my first time on this past week. It was exciting. I was just wanting to be there like a fly on the wall and to listen and to watch. But I love the way and this may have been at this one or the one prior, he grouped people together. Like if you had similarities, you followed each other. And one guy was going on for whatever amount of time, but he never mentioned his business. So Doug's like, you've got about 45 seconds.
Yeah,
it was great.
Yeah. It was great though. And so, yeah, we'll have the virtual Global Tea Party again with Data. And we'll, what area, part of the world will we explore in June, Data?
I think it was it South America? South America.
Okay.
So be ready for that one. That's a whole different experience. Yes, I love it.
That'll be great. And one of the people that we should involve definitely is Maria Segura, now Maria Putnam. She has been kind of a second in command for Global Chamber Denver. She's from Bogota. And so our executive director for Denver, Jeffrey Campos, is leaving at the end of this week, and Maria has agreed to take over the chapter. So actually, that's a very fresh conversation. Nobody else knows this, but this week we'll be announcing that. So she's actually interested in not just leading Global Chamber Denver, but also starting up the chapter in Bogota with her family. So this might be a good lead-in for her. Wonderful. As you may know, she leads the virtual dining for Global Chamber. So it's going to be, I think, a really win-win for everybody. And this is a great way maybe to align the virtual dining along with the tea. Do you know what time that's going to be on the 27th by any chance, or shall we decide later?
I don't know that we decided. We were trying to stagger them so we can get people from around the world. So today starting 9 Eastern, and then so that one, I don't know. I don't know if we set a time yet.
No, but we'll probably be more in the afternoon time.
Okay, maybe about 2.
Yeah, definitely want to make sure that we focus in on Latin America, that we get all of the, whatever it is, 4 or 5 time zones.
Okay, you got it. So one other thing, guys, so you notice like we had people register, and I think we had 2 different links. So I don't know how we can smooth that transition so we don't lose the people that have expressed interest and they didn't have the link for today. So if you could give us some tips on that, because we want to make sure that everyone from around the world, we did it this early to try to get UK, parts of Africa, India, and I think we may have missed a little bit of that sector somehow. So any tips on that, you let us know. Again, in the spirit of our Japanese tea ceremony, domo arigato.
Domo arigato gozaimashita. Dozo yoroshiku onegai shimasu.
Amen.
Wonderful. Thank you. Great job today.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you guys this week. What's coming up? We have a lot of things with the chamber. Come on, guys.
Ruby has an event on Tuesday.
Okay,
Accra and Katie. I think it's Accra in London, isn't it?
It sure is.
Wow. Look at you guys.
I love it.
We'll have a chat tomorrow, Ruby.
That's clearly the #1 event this week. And then we actually have a virtual dining. Maria's virtual dining event, we partnered with the U.S. Bulgarian Chamber in America. And so it's lunchtime, the first time we've had lunch in the U.S.
Yes.
And it's dinner in Sofia, Bulgaria. And we have food experts from Bulgaria, Romania, and Turkey who will talk about food and wine and kind of take us to a place that probably we've never been through the virtual dining event. So
I love it.
other than the Accra, London is clearly #1 this week, but there are some other interesting things going on as well. Thank you, ladies, for pulling all these together. This is awesome.
Awesome.
Laura, do you have anything from TAN TV? And what is your motto?
So TAN TV stands for the African American Network, where we have a local feel with a global reach. So that means that we bring a local feel all over the globe. It's a digital television network, and we'd love to bring some of you on to talk to you about some of the happenings in your country. We want to reach out globally all over the world and let people know who you are, what you do, and why you do it.
Mhm.
So this has been an exciting experience for me. And so I'm going to start studying tea a little bit more, because I had one idea about what tea was all about, you know, probably one or two teas. But today I learned about probably 3 or 4 teas, and I'm drinking one now. And the tea is healing, and I've enjoyed the networking and the camaraderie of this event. So continue on, and thank you so much, Dana, for inviting me, and I look forward to more.
Thank you for that. You mentioned Lipton tea earlier, Laura, and I wanted to tell you what I use Lipton tea for.
Okay.
I use Lipton tea if I have puffiness around my eyes. I take the tea bags and I immerse them in warm water, and then I run cold water, and then I squeeze them out, and then I put them on my eyes, and it has tannins in it that takes down the puffiness. That's how I value the Lipton tea. Because it's not like one of those purest forms of tea. Now they are getting into some of the silk bags and, you know, trying to get a better grade, but the general Lipton tea is really good for puffiness.
Really?
Nosebleeds too, but that's in the book.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's good to know.
We could go on, but listen, since we've started early, for those of us in the US, we have the rest of our day ahead of us. And for you guys in UK and Ghana, Accra, good afternoon. We hope the rest of your evening is filled with love, peace, and happiness.
Thank you.
Have a great day, y'all.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.